It continues to be warmer than average across the country, but we do have a cooler change on Friday and a windy, stormier change coming next week. Hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thank you for joining us. We're tracking quite a bit of weather at the moment. We've got quite a lot going on. And at the moment, the main theme is warmer winds coming out of the subtropics. And that's why the temperatures have been well up this week, several degrees, some places 10, 12, 13 degrees above where you historically are at this time of the year. So we've got this warm flow coming down, but there's this low in the Tasman. It's going to fall apart as it moves in, but behind it there is a bit of a cooler change, and we've got a little bit of a cool down, well actually it's a fair bit of a cool down for some parts of the South Island on Friday where you drop over 10 degrees. So we'll talk about that in a split second. First of all, rain. Plenty of rain coming in for the west coast again, and with the storm coming next week in the Southern Ocean, it's not coming up and over the country, but it's down in the Southern Ocean, and it's going to push up these rainfall totals, and some parts over 200 millimetres. So that is a lot coming for the western side, but the eastern side, Banks Peninsula, for example, you might have 0 millimetres in the next week ahead, and other eastern areas like Napier and Hastings might also be right around that sort of 0. Maybe you're getting one shower, might be 0.2 millimetres or 0.5, something like that. So in other words, dry in the east, wet in the west, and the area you see there with some rain, afternoon downpours, some thunderstorms that might be developing this weekend. So let's take a look at the forecast. Here is Friday's setup. The cooler change doesn't look very dramatic, but there is the cooler change in the South Island. A couple of showers, and places like Timaru, a high of around 26 for Thursday, and your high on Fridays around 13 or 14. So that is quite a big drop. In the North Island, it's still pretty warm, and you've got these showers. That's the leftovers of that low. So those who need some rain, I'm sure you'll be looking forward to that, but it won't be very much. So if you don't want rain, there's the good news. Now, as we head into the weekend, afternoon downpours popping up because we've got a humid airflow down over the country. We've also got high pressure nearby. So the downpours are going to bubble up into the afternoon, and they will be most likely around Central Plateau, drifting down towards Wanganui. But to the north, you've got a few downpours bubbling up maybe around Waikato, over towards East Cape, maybe even some rural parts of Auckland and Northland, and also the upper South Island. So Saturday could be a little dynamic with a few downpours and a couple of thunderstorms. On Sunday, you'll start to notice the change. That's the northwest flow coming back out of the subtropics, so still warm, but it's the wind picking up and becoming stronger with low pressure down here, and that's just the precursor to the main low that's coming through next week. So Sunday will be a warm day right across the country, although the west coast will be a little cooler with the cloud cover and the rain that is setting in across the day. Could be some heavy rain warnings and some strong wind warnings issued for that system, and just a couple of showers, light ones really, for the North Island. So let's take a look at next week. Monday looks quite similar to Sunday, although the west coast is much drier on Monday. We'll see a few showers, and look at the wind flow coming straight out from near Fiji, New Caledonia, and right down across the North Island. And in the South Island, subtropical out of the Coral Sea for some of you. If you're not getting that, it's coming out of Australia as a nor'wester. So next week kicks off warm and fairly dry. There will be those showers around that you can see. And on Tuesday, look at this map. Wow. So there's New Zealand, and there's all of this area of low pressure that is at least 3 times the size of Australia. It is a significant area of low pressure, but big doesn't always mean bad. And so while it is very windy, we expect strong to gale force winds around the usual areas, Cook Strait, the Southern Alps, parts of Canterbury, parts of Otago, heavy rain on the west coast as well. But the further north you go, you're under high pressure, so eastern areas like Hawke's Bay and Gisborne and Bay of Plenty, probably mostly sunny, a little bit blustery, but warm, and certainly fairly dry in the very north of the country. A little bit of shower activity coming in around Auckland and Northland. And then we go to the middle of next week, Wednesday, and once again, high pressure is still very nearby. So while this looks very dramatic, and it does, it is an amazing looking storm, and I would not want to be on a boat anywhere near this system in the Southern Ocean. But if you look at the North Island, you're actually on the outer edges of it. So there'll be a lot of news stories about this, but in the North Island, you're really on the outer edges of it. Still got light winds out of the subtropics, a little bit windier obviously around Cook Strait, where you'll have gales at times, and windier weather through the Southern Alps, with heavy rain continuing on the west coast. So there is a lot going on next week, but it may not be as dramatic as you might think. Now before I go, we have a lot of news stories at the moment worth taking a look at. You can get this on our website or on our app. It's in the news section on our app. And the three or four stories I'd like you to look at are here on the homepage or on the main news section. Yes, Australia's smoke is affecting the country. The whole country pretty much is getting it at the moment, and it could be going on for another week or two. We've also got an explanation as to why New Zealand is so windy, the roaring 40s, and all the other parts south of New Zealand. This is well worth a good read, very educational. This story here, stunning poll on Twitter, 49% say climate change, not a concern, and we had about 1,200 votes all up. So that's quite a significant poll, and we're putting this down to NIWA basically giving up on talking climate change to commercially go up against Met Service. Government agency versus government agency using your money. Whether you think that's a good idea or not, why don't you have a read of that story? And the final one, is this an early summer? And I think you in the North Island especially are probably saying yes to that, and some of the South as well. In fact, the South Island has just had a heat wave. We've had more than 5 days inland with temperatures 5 degrees and above. So a lot of news stories to take a read of. Go to our homepage or the news section of our app. That's all from me. We'll see you again tomorrow, Friday, with your weekend forecast.